security concern in the cryptocurrency space is the security of folks' assets, where they're stored, when they'll have access to them, and what happens if perhaps they go missing. Joining us now to talk about all of this is the co-founder and president of Anchorage Digital, Diogo Monica. Diogo, thanks so much for jumping on the program this morning. Let's just start with how you guys fit into the crypto space and sort of how you see, when I say things like security concerns around cryptocurrency, what does that mean to you, and where do you fit in addressing some of those so that folks can invest in the space and do it safely?
That's exactly what we do. Anchorage Digital is a platform for institutions that enables them to have access to securely custody, trade, lend, borrow digital assets, and just in general participate in any blockchain activities. And just earlier this year in January, we actually became the first digital charter to be granted a federal banking charter by the OCC, which actually puts us on the same regulatory footing as other national banks. So our business is to allow institutions to safely participate in the space.
And when you talk about that bank charter, I guess, what was the challenge in going through that process to get it? And how is that, how many other folks are in your space with that kind of, kind of regulatory backing such that they can, work with certain groups? And we'll talk, I'm sure, about in your contract with the Marshals service, but you're not getting that unless you have a bank charter. So how many, other folks out there, other, competitors out there have achieved that? And where does it set you relative, to the industry?
There are no other crypto companies that have an operational federal charter, and thus we are the only ones. And you're absolutely right that it is one of the big factors that lead institutions to choose Anchorage over any other solution. We are regulated, we have the safest platform, and a lot of the issues that institutions have are around regulation, clarity of participation in the space, and also the safety of their assets. And so the fact that we provide this vertically integrated service, and it's not just safekeeping, it is the ability to buy and sell, it is the ability to borrow, the ability to lend, the ability to stake, deep participation and use of these blockchains really enables them to come into this space in a trustworthy way. They look at Anchorage Digital and say, hey, I know this type of charter. This is the type of charter that I use in traditional banking. And the technology is significantly different. It is fundamental different technology to protect crypto assets than to protect traditional financial assets. But this technology seems to be the best, and they have the highest regulatory scrutiny that they can have in the form of a federal charter.
Diogo, it's Julie here. We're talking to you, of course, in the wake of this enormous hack of a blockchain-based cryptocurrency platform, Poly Network, that apparently cost folks $600 million in lost assets. What's the difference? That's certainly not the first hack that we have seen of a network. What are they not doing that they need to be doing in terms of security?
So let me just point out that these networks are nascent. These, even though they have hundreds of millions of dollars and potentially even billions of dollars on these platforms from very early on, and it is very clear that there's excitement to prove out these networks, these are completely unproven. And part of the fast iteration of the space, unfortunately, comes in the form of bugs, comes in the form of hacks that are exploiting features that weren't really developed correctly. So think about this maybe more as an early stage investment. When you're making a seed investment in a company, there are many things that stand in between that company and success. And for crypto networks and crypto protocols like Poly Network, example of TorChain, and something exactly very similar happened to them just a few weeks back, this is validation, early validation that the protocols need to go through to really become fully fledged protocols that people trust. This is part of the reason why protocols like Bitcoin that have been around for over 12 years have so much trust. They've been validated over and over and over again. They've been in the market with almost $1 trillion in market value locked into these protocols, then operating without any kind of failures, without any kind of downtime, day in and day out.
And, Diogo, obviously we saw earlier this week all the conversation around the infrastructure bill and would there be protections or certain, I guess, more specific language, let's say, around, taxation on cryptocurrency, so on and so forth. As you saw those proceedings play out and you think about future regulatory actions that are almost certain to take place in the cryptocurrency space, how are you thinking about that landscape? Does it worry you that so many lawmakers are all of a sudden talking about this, or are you feeling like, hey, this process needs to get started and it's going to be imperfect, but there is going to be more regulatory scrutiny one way or another?
Anchorage knew that there was going to be more regulatory scrutiny. There is no other possibility but having a market that reaches almost $2 trillion and obviously having regulators pay attention to it. And this is part of the reason why our strategic view and path from day one has been not just to have the best safety technology for trading, for custody, but also have the clearest regulatory clarity that we can have in the form of a qualified custodian and in the form of a federal charter. So think about us. We were ahead of the curve. We knew this was something that was going to happen. And we are already a federal bank. We are audited by the oldest banking regulator in the United States, which is the OCC. And we go through yearly audits and we have all of the same regulatory requirements as traditional OCC chartered banks have. And so in a way, part of the reason why we did it was because we knew that there was going to be a push from regulators to ensure that the space had consumer protections and transparency and the clarity that we have in the traditional finance. And that's just a normal path of the evolution and the maturity of the space. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. Of course, there might be changes that are done that might stifle innovation in the United States. We do not want that to happen. But asking for taxation and transparency in tax reports so that these things can actually be, the IRS can actually collect and taxes can be collected for them, that's absolutely something that many of these institutions have and should have. And there is no question about that that is actually the right direction for the space to go into.
And, Diogo, before we let you go, I want to ask a little bit more about this contract you guys have with the Marshals service, where they work with you when they seize digital assets. I guess I would ask two parts. Where are they getting these from? And then when you guys have them, are you running the auction process? Are they running the auction process? Like, how does it work once, you are custodying these assets and then they're working to, offload them to, a legally viable party, I guess?
Yeah. So what happened was that the U.S. Marshals, the Service Asset Forfeiture Division, what they do is they seize digital assets in instances of federal crime, the same way that seize traditional assets in the traditional world, where those are securities or bars of gold or just cash. And in 2019, they started looking for a partner to handle the full life cycle of these seized digital assets. Remember, these are very hard to protect, very hard to handle. So Anchorage Digital was announced to be that partner. And with this contract, what we're responsible for is we're providing a full suite of cryptocurrency services to them. Yes, it includes custody, but it also includes liquidation, wallet creation, transformation of these crypto assets into US dollars, as well as future actions associated with virtual currency forfeiture process. So their decision really speaks to the quality of the platform that Anchorage has developed and the stringent processes and procedures that have been put in place around its use. It is by no accident that Anchorage, with its federal charter, is being chosen by the USMS to actually do this for them.
Yeah, and one has to imagine the market for digital asset forfeiture is a growing market. So everyone loves their TAMs, and I think a growing one there. All right, Diogo Monica is the co-founder and president at Anchorage Digital. Diogo, I appreciate the time this morning. Thanks so much.